Across the cold silence of the galaxy, in a sector forgotten by time, a small beacon blinked once, then vanished into the stars. The signal it carried was broken, shaking as if sent by a dying hand. No one should have heard it, not anymore. The Galactic Council had erased all records of Earth long ago. Earth was marked as hostile, its people labeled as unstable, too violent, too unpredictable. But desperation has a way of ignoring warnings. The message was a cry for help. A final call from a planet being consumed by something unnatural. Their leaders were dead. Their skies on fire. It wasn't just a war, it was an infection, spreading through thought, through fear, through memory itself. Their last act was not aimed at allies. They had none left. Instead, they whispered one name into the blackness. A name spoken like a curse, like a prayer. Earth. On the far edge of the Milky Way, hidden under dark shields and cloaked satellites, Earth's defense system caught the signal. Deep under the Siberian ice, in an underground command room with no windows and no names, the signal played. It wasn't in words. It was emotion, pure fear transmitted through data. A pain so deep, it could barely be understood, and something in that pain matched Earth's own past. Commander Rhea stood silently in front of the black screen, her arms behind her back. Her uniform held no insignia. Her face had no expression, but her eyes, they burned like storm clouds. She didn't speak when the signal ended. She didn't look at her advisors. She simply said 3 words: prepare the fleet. No questions were asked. There was no debate, because every person in that room knew what it meant when Earth decided to move. Earth didn't rescue. It didn't warn. It punished. Above orbit, the sky opened. 2 Deathworld-class dreadnoughts uncloaked from low orbit and activated their drives. Behind them followed 16 destroyers, all black, no flags, no names. Moved like ghosts, silent and fast. The last time they were seen in open space, they had ended a war in 3 days, not with peace talks, but with fire. Entire planets had gone dark. Civilizations that had stood for centuries were turned to ash. And still, Earth did not apologize. They simply returned home and locked the skies. Back at the Galactic Council station, high above the peaceful moon of Serenes, the diplomats were arguing again. The Council had fallen into weakness. Words replaced action. Politics replaced protection. And fear had spread quietly like rot in the bones of a tree. The signal from the infected world had not reached them. Earth had intercepted it first, and now Earth was coming. No warnings, no answers. Just a fleet moving through subspace at impossible speeds. On board the lead ship, ESS Deliverance, Commander Rhea walked alone through a corridor lined with walls of black metal and red light. Her crew didn't ask where they were going. Didn't ask why. They had been trained for one purpose, only to bring total, unstoppable force. Earth soldiers were not loud. They did not celebrate war. They remembered it. Every burn, every scream. Every time the galaxy had turned its back when Earth was bleeding. And now, Earth remembered everything. The beacon had spoken to their pain, and Earth had answered. The fleet passed through the Vega Drift in minutes. An automated warning from a border outpost tried to challenge them. Earth didn't even respond. The outpost vanished without a trace. The stars beyond twisted as the ships entered Council-controlled space, heading straight toward a world under quarantine. The infected planet Viral Prime was once a place of beauty. Green skies, golden oceans, cities that floated in the clouds. Now, it was broken. The infection had consumed its leaders, corrupted its language, rewritten its memories. What remained wasn't life, was a reflection. Empty, cold, and still smiling, the first Earth ship arrived in orbit. It did not send a message. It did not identify itself. It simply scanned the surface, detected the source of the infection, and released one drone. The drone fell silently. No lights, no engine, just gravity. When it touched the surface, it opened and released one name into the atmosphere. Not a weapon, not a virus. A reminder. And every infected mind heard it. You remember us, and now we remember you. Across the galaxy, old systems stirred. Civilizations that had forgotten Earth now felt the return. Some cheered, most trembled, because Earth did not forget betrayal. Earth did not forget being left behind when Earth's Deathworlders launched. They did not come to forgive. They came to erase. The Galactic Council's emergency chamber, a grand oval room floating in the clouds of Serenes, was never meant for war. It was built for word-shining marble floors, gold-edged windows, and a ceiling painted with the flags of every species united under peace. But now those flags hung heavy with silence. The diplomats inside weren't talking anymore. They were watching the sky. They had just received the first unfiltered footage from Peril Prime. It showed a single drone landing. No weapons, no explosions, just a message. And then, within minutes, entire regions of the infected planet collapsed. Had taken over Peril minds didn't die. It fled, screaming, as if some ancient memory had returned. The humans hadn't fired a shot, and still, Peril Prime fell. Not to bombs, but to remembrance. One counselor, a tall insectoid named Verot, slammed a clawed hand on the table. They are not following protocol. Earth was never summoned, never invited. This is invasion. Another counselor, from the waterborne Chur species, whispered. They came because we did nothing, because she stopped, voice breaking. Verot pointed at her. He exiled them for this very reason. Earth is not peace. Earth is punishment in armor. And then, without warning, every communicator in the chamber lit up. A human face appeared, calm, cold. Commander Rhea. No opening greeting, no introduction. Just words that cut through every translation system like fire through ice. You knew this was coming. You let it spread. You let them forget who they were, just to avoid pain. Earth remembers everything. So now, we will help the galaxy remember what justice looks like, Verot growled. You dare threaten us. But Rhea was already gone. The feed cut, and a single icon remained floating on the screen. The symbol of old Earth a cracked, planet wrapped in barbed rings, a sign not of unity, but of warning. Outside the council in open space, Earth's fleet grew. More dreadnoughts, more destroyers, each cloaked, each silent. They weren't coming to negotiate. They were waiting for the infection to speak first, so they could trace it, find the source, and end it. But the infection didn't speak, it screamed. In the distant sector of Tranor 6, a council-lined planet suddenly went dark. Entire species collapsed in hours, not dead converted. Their minds overwritten with visions of peace, stillness, and joy, but without identity. They were walking statues now. The infection had grown stronger, faster. But this time, Earth was watching, and Earth responded. A single human destroyer dropped from orbit over Tranor 6, surrounded by a shimmering field of charged memory. Its weapons weren't visible, but its presence brought silence. Rhea's voice echoed across the planet. You lost your people because you've surrendered their pain. We do not erase suffering. We survive it. Then, without warning, the sky burned white. Earth's memory tech classified and never shared unleashed a pulse not of heat or force, but of remembrance. Infected fell to the ground, screaming. Names of people they had forgotten. They wept, not from fear, but from suddenly remembering who they were. The parasite inside them shattered. The people of Tranor 6 began to wake, but the cost was heavy. Every infected building, every rewritten structure vaporized. Earth didn't preserve tainted ground. Earth purified it. Back on Serenes, the Council's emergency message board exploded with demands. Earth must be stopped. They are violating dozens of star codes. Why won't they speak to us? But the most chilling answer came from a lower-ranking council archivist. She simply said, "They aren't here to talk. They're here to finish what we refuse to face." That was when Earth's final message arrived. Not on screens. Through code. But through memory burst to technology the Council had outlawed, but Earth had perfected. Every living being across 10 systems suddenly saw the same thing. The day Earth was cut off. The day the Council ignored humanity's warning about the parasite species. The day they told Earth, your fear makes you unfit for unity. Now, All those systems knew the truth. Earth hadn't become cruel. The galaxy had become blind. At the edge of the stars, where dark matter flows like rivers, Earth's final phase began. The Vindicator-class dreadnoughts moved into position. Each one a fortress. Each one carrying a command core of living memories. I groaned from the minds of human war survivors. At the center stood Rhea. No medals, no applause, no flag. Just a woman holding the pain of a species, ready to make the galaxy feel it. Again, she gave the order. Fire only where they forget. Let memory be our weapon, and if they choose to forget again. She paused, then spoke the words Earth had carried for a century. We will remind them with fire. The stars had seen war before, civilizations rising, empires falling, but nothing in the galaxy's long history prepared it for Earth's return. The fleets of Earth didn't shine. They didn't carry banners or play songs of hope. They arrived, in silence, with dark hulls, jagged shapes, and cold engines humming like wolves just before the hunt. To the outer worlds, Earth was a shadow from myths spoken of in fear, buried in council records under titles like the Unstable Origin, the Death Seed, or the Most Feared, Deathworld Zero. But most beings had never met a human. They didn't understand until now. High above the neutral moon of Typhus, a lone ship descended. It wasn't large. Not a battleship, not a destroyer. Just a single scout-class vessel with markings scorched by old warfire. Inside it, a young alien girl named Celery hid in the storage deck, clutching a stolen oxygen pack and shaking in silence. She was Varelian, a species that once lived in color and laughter. Now, they walked like statues, hollow-eyed, infected. By memory-azing parasites, Solari wasn't infected. Not yet, but she was afraid. She had seen her family forget each other. Her mother smiled as she forgot her own name. Her father begged for silence instead of truth. Solari had run, and somehow, she'd ended up here on a ship headed straight into the heart of the human fleet. She expected noise, anger, cruelty. Instead, she heard silence, and then a voice. You can come out now, the woman said softly. Solari froze. The voice wasn't angry. It sounded tired. It's like someone who had cried 1,000 times and still stood tall. She stepped out and saw her first. Human Commander Rhea, tall, worn, face-marked, with deep scars, some from battle, others from grief. Her eyes met Solaris without judgment, just recognition. You're not infected, Rhea said. Solaris nodded slowly. Not yet. The woman reached out and helped her stand. Then you'll stay here, with us for now. Solari couldn't. Believe it? You're not going to hurt me? Rhea raised one brow. Why would I hurt someone who still remembers who they are? Solari looked around. The ship was cold, metal-lined. Nothing like the warm chambers of her old world. But the people here, humans, weren't cruel. They were focused. Serious. Every one of them carried grief like armor. They didn't laugh much, but they looked each other in the eye. They moved with purpose. They spoke little, but meant every word. She followed Rhea through the corridors and watched humans work. One man with a synthetic arm running diagnostics on memory pulse weapons. A woman uploading names of forgotten colonies into the ship's database siege. One read aloud as if honoring the dead. These people were not invaders. They were reminders that night. Solari sat beside Rhea in the observation chamber, watching. Earth, from a distance. Blue and green. Still alive. Still proud, but not shining. You're called Deathworlders, Solari said quietly. They say you enjoy destruction. Rhea looked out the glass, her voice low. We don't enjoy it. We remember it. That's the difference. Why don't you try peace? Rhea looked at her. We did. Before the council shut us out. Before they erased us from history. We begged them to listen. We warned them about the parasites. About what forgetting does to a species. Solari blinked. They didn't believe. You, Rhea nodded. So we learned. If they won't remember by choice, she looked back at the stars. Then we make them remember by fire. Back at the Galactic Council, chaos spread like a virus. The old alliances were breaking. Some species begged for Earth's help now, realizing the infection had already begun in their cities. Others blamed Earth, claiming the humans had returned, only to finish what the parasites started. But no one could deny one truth: where Earth arrived, memory came back. Entire populations were waking up, screaming, crying, remembering everything they'd tried to forget: pain, loss, betrayal, but also names, faces, purpose. Salar. I watched humans load memory-charged canisters into drop pods. "You're not killing them," she whispered. "You're waking them up." Rhea nodded. "We don't want to rule them. We want them to stand again." Alari's eyes filled with tears. "They said you were monsters." Rhea gently touched the scar on her cheek. "We became what they called us, so that one day they'd beg us to be something more." Solari didn't know what to say, but she knew one thing for sure. The Deathworlders weren't monsters. They were the galaxy's last memory keepers, and their silence wasn't cruelty. It was the sound of truth returning. The fleet drifted in absolute silence beyond the edge of council space. Stars shimmered faintly, but the shadows between them held something colder than war truth that had been buried. On the command deck of the ESS Deliverance, Commander Rhea studied the ancient coordinates recently recovered by her AI. These weren't just abandoned war zones or forgotten worlds. They pointed to a council black site long removed from maps, a place Earth once helped build and tried to destroy. The name sent a chill even through her: Project Echoful. Solari stood at her side, watching the screen with wide eyes. "What is that place?" Rhea didn't look at her. "Weapon. One even Earth was afraid of. We helped build it during the first parasite wars. Then the council took it, modified it, hid it." Solari tilted her head. "What does it do?" Rhea finally met her gaze. "Doesn't kill bodies. It kills memory. Erases entire civilizations, not with bombs, but with silence. No names. Faces. Just disappearance." Solari gasped. "What? But why would they use that?" Rhea answered coldly. "To rewrite the galaxy into something easier to control." They arrived at a dead star system with only one broken planet circling a collapsed sun. It was called Kedronel. The station sat in orbit, massive, ancient, rusting, still powered. Earth's scans showed a weak signal, pulsing every 17 seconds. Inside that pulse was a voice: "Echofal standby. Echofal standby. .. But the voice was human. Solari felt her chest tighten. "There are humans inside?" Rhea shook her head. "No, just fragments. Memories copied and looped." Ash, the ship's AI, cut in. "The facility's core is live. Someone or something reactivated it 3 days ago. Someone wants Echofal online again." The crew exchanged glances. This wasn't just a relic. It was an active threat. Rhea gave the order: board it. The team moved in fast, armored in Earth's memory-hardened suits, each one designed to resist thought-based corruption. Solari stayed aboard with Ash, but watched through drone feeds. The station was full of twisted halls, walls marked with burned names, and doors sealed with council codes. As the humans moved deeper, the lights came on, not one by one, all at once. And voices started to whisper. Each wall spoke in every language known across the stars. "You don't need pain. You don't need regret. Let go. Let go." Ash's voice trembled slightly. "It's broadcasting across every known memory layer. Even machines are being affected." In the main chamber they found it. The core, a smooth black sphere floating above a metal altar, surrounded by bodies. Some were alien, some were human, all of them smiling. Not alive, just frozen in perfect peace. Solari choked. "They don't even look dead," Ash responded, voice colder now, because they were never allowed to remember dying. Rhea approached the core. Weight pulsed, softly releasing waves of comfort. She could feel it even through the suit. Her hands trembled not from fear, but from an overwhelming urge to drop everything and just rest. Ash screamed in her earpiece, "Rhea, don't. That thing is feeding on emotional release. If you stop fighting, It will rewrite you. But she didn't move closer. Instead, she pulled a small cube from her belt, a memory grenade, one of Earth's most dangerous weapons. It didn't explode with fire. It exploded with reminders, the kind that cut deeper than blades. She armed it and spoke calmly. I remember the day we buried HFY. I remember the vote. And I remember how the council begged us to keep it secret. The voices from the walls turned frantic. You don't need this. You could be free. You could be light. You could be. She threw the grenade. The blast shattered the silence. Images filled the chamber, burning skies. Children screaming, lovers lost, friends betrayed. Every memory the council had erased in an effort to create peace. And in that flood, the core cracked. The whispering stopped. The walls went dark. HFY died, back on the deliverance. Solari sat quietly, tears in her eyes. Why would anyone want to erase so much? Rhea answered, sitting beside her. Because perfect peace is easier than truth. But the price is too high. Solari looked at her. You could have used that weapon yourselves, controlled everything. Rhea nodded. We could have. Then why didn't you? Rhea leaned back and stared at the stars. Because we're human. And humanity isn't perfect. It's honest. That's what makes us dangerous. That's what makes us real. Across the galaxy, news of HFY's destruction spread. Quiet at first, then louder. Some species wept in relief. Others screamed in fear. Because if Earth was willing to destroy something that powerful, then nothing, not even ancient council secrets, was safe anymore. And in deep space, the parasite felt it. Not pain, not loss, but something worse. Recognition. Earth was coming, not with mercy, but with memory sharpened into fire. The galaxy thought Earth was gone, forgotten, buried in the past like a bad dream. But now, as one council world after another fell silent, the truth spread faster than any signal. Earth hadn't just returned, it had waited, watching from the dark, preparing not to rebuild peace, but to punish those who betrayed it. Across the stars, former allies remembered Earth's exile, not because of war crimes, but because of truth. Earth had spoken up about the parasite long ago. They had warned the council of the infection spreading in the minds of the galaxy's leaders. But instead of listening, the council silenced Earth, erased it from maps, labeled it too violent, too unstable to belong. And now, that warning had become a promise. Commander Rhea stood on the bridge of the ESS Deliverance, eyes locked on the image of the next target. Thailand 3, one of the founding worlds of the Galactic Council. The planet still looked beautiful silver. Oceans, floating cities, music in the winds, but it was hollow now. The infection had taken root so deeply that its leaders smiled, while their people forgot their own history. And worse, they welcomed the forgetting. They saw peace, not as strength, but as silence. Rhea's voice broke the silence of the command deck. Target acquired. No resistance expected. Zora, her chief systems officer, turned with hesitation. They're broadcasting songs of welcome. They believe we're here to help them forget. Rhea didn't blink, then remind them why we were exiled. The crew moved without further command. Memory canisters, Earth's most terrifying weapon, were loaded into drop pods. They didn't explode with heat. They didn't level cities. It unleashed reality. Sights, sounds, pain, every buried memory reawakened. A culture's true face, raw and unedited. The humans didn't want conquest. They wanted to wake up the dead minds of the galaxy. The pods fell. Across Thailand 3, people dropped to their knees, not from wounds, but from realization. The smiling lie they lived shattered. They remembered their ancestors, their pain, their sacrifices. Everything the parasite had told them was unnecessary, and with every mind that woke, infection weakened. One of the infected, a high chancellor, named Vesh, broadcast a final desperate call to Earth's fleet. His eyes were empty, his voice to calm. Please stop. This pain, it divides us. Let us return to peace. let us sleep. Ria's reply was short. You taught them peace without truth. We'll teach them truth that bleeds. She ordered another wave of memory bursts. No hesitation. Solari, watching from the observation deck, whispered to herself, You're not fighting them. You're fighting what they've become. Ria heard her. We warned them, begged. We were called monsters. So now we show them what monsters remember. Back in the council chamber on Serenes, panic ruled. Worlds that once mocked Earth now begged for mercy. Transmission after transmission flooded the network. Earth is not here to conquer. They're restoring what we lost. They remembered us, when we had forgotten ourselves. But the Council's core leaders, those still infected, to surrender. They called Earth's actions dangerous, rebellious, illegal. But none of that mattered. Because Earth didn't ask for permission, they acted. And their message, now broadcast across the outer systems, reached even the most distant colonies. We don't come to rule, come to remind you who you were before you gave up. The galaxy had tried to build a peaceful order without struggle, without pain, without remembering why peace was ever needed. But Earth, scarred, loud, burning, remembered everything. One world, Kivar, once home to fierce warrior poets, had been silenced. For decades, its art turned into empty slogans. Its children taught nothing of their past. Earth dropped a single pod there, no weapon, just a voice. A grandmother heard it. She began to remember the names of her fallen brothers. A child felt tears for thee. First time, not sadness, but connection. The parasite inside them broke apart. Not from force, but from identity returned, and Earth's legend grew. They were no longer just Deathworlders. They were the torchbearers of truth, where the Council erased. Earth revealed, where others forgot, Earth burned remembrance into the sky. And deep inside the stars, the true enemy, those parasites that fed on amnesia, felt something they had never known before. Not anger, not fear, but doubt. Because now, their power was fading. Their lies were collapsing. Perfect silence was being torn apart by one unstoppable force. Human memory. Not just a weapon, a promise. And Earth had just begun to collect, in the deepest hall of the Galactic Council's central tower on Serenes. Far below the public chambers and polished glass domes, something ancient stirred. It wasn't made of bone or blood. It wasn't seen by eyes or heard with ears. It moved in thoughts and fear and control. It was the reason Earth had been exiled. And now, as Earth's fleet tore through infected worlds like fire through dry leaves, it was waking Solar. I stood in silence, looking at the massive screen inside the ESS Deliverance. Her eyes weren't on the battle footage, they were on the faces. She saw thousands of aliens weeping, shaking, clutching at their heads as Earth's memory pulses hit them. But these weren't cries of pain, or cries of awakening, like prisoners finally opening their eyes. She whispered, We're not just saving them, we're breaking something, aren't we? Ria, standing beside her, nodded slowly. We thought it was just infection, a parasite in the brain. Yeah, but this thing goes deeper. It's not just feeding on memory, it's guiding it, rewriting it, ruling from underneath it all. Ash, the ship's AI, interrupted, voice sharp. New data confirms infiltration inside the highest levels of the Council. Mind signatures show non-native neural patterns. Some of their leaders haven't had original thoughts in decades. Ria's voice dropped to a whisper. They were never corrupted. They were possessed. And then something unexpected happened. A message came through. Not a scream, not a cry for help. A request from within the Council Tower itself. A female voice, broken, determined. My name is Counselor Ariel of the Alin Syndicate. I believe. I'm infected, but I'm still aware. Please, help me before it takes me completely. Ria froze, a counselor admitting infection. That had never happened. Solari stepped forward. We have to go. If she's still aware, she could lead us to the source. Ria stared at the stars, then finally gave the order. Prepare infiltration team. We're going to Serenes. The ESS Deliverance approached the Council capital, cloaked in memory. Shadow, hiding not from sight, but from thought. Earth's most elite soldiers descended in silence, with Solari now fully embedded with the crew joining them. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She had seen too much to stay on the sidelines. Her people had been erased from history. She wanted to see who had ordered it. The council tower's inner halls were darker than expected, quiet, not abandoned, but hollow, as if the minds of those inside had been drained long ago. Solari felt the weight of silence pressing on her chest. It's like walking through a forgotten dream. They reached the chamber where Counselor Ariel had broadcast from. Inside, they found her, barely alive, eyes glowing faintly with that eerie blue light they now knew to Wealtha. Sign of infection. But she was still herself. Just barely. She looked up, eyes wide, tears streaming. It's beneath us. The throne isn't just a symbol, it's a prison, a doorway. They've been sitting on it for centuries. Ash broke through comes. I'm scanning something massive. Under the council tower, a buried structure, not made from any known council material. It's organic, alive. Ariel gasped. They're the ones who erased Earth, because Earth was the only species that could remember pain without surrendering. That terrified them. Solari stepped closer, her voice trembling. Why? Did they want to erase everyone's past? Ariel laughed, a sound full of sorrow, because memory is rebellion. Obedience is easier when no one remembers why they fought. And then, the walls moved. From the floor, tendrils of dark energy, half machine, half thought, trenched up toward the team. Earth's soldiers opened fire instantly, but it wasn't bullets they needed. Rhea activated a core memory burst. The room exploded in raw. Human memory, pain, loss, strength, survival. The energy screamed, pulling back, shrieking like something ancient and dying. The illusion of the council tower peeled away. Beneath it was a living parasite, coiled under the seats of power, wrapped around the minds of the galaxy's rulers. They weren't symbols of peace, they were puppets. Rhea stepped forward, voice shaking with fury. This is what you silenced Earth to protect. Ash's voice cut in again. Commander, parasite is spreading. If we don't burn it now, it'll flee to another system. Rhea looked at Ariel, still breathing, still resisting. Can we stop it without killing everyone here? Ariel, barely conscious, nodded. There's a root, deep under the throne. Burn that, and the rest dies with it. Rhea turned to her team. Then we end it. No more forgetting. No more lies. Today we remind the galaxy what truth costs sand, what freedom truly means. Far above the stars, pulsed Earth had found the enemy not just in space, but inside the mind of peace itself. And now, how it would learn that humanity wasn't dangerous because it fought. It was dangerous because it remembered why. The fire began deep beneath the council tower, not with explosions but with memory. In the chamber beneath the throne, where the true parasite had coiled itself around the minds of leaders for generations, Earth's final team had reached the core. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a brain. It was something far worse, a living concept. An organism made of control, feeding on obedience, rewriting truth one thought at a time. And now it faced something it could not erase. Human will, Commander. Rhea stood before the core, the last memory burst loaded in her gauntlet. Around her, her team held fast, even as the parasite pulsed and whispered promises of peace. You don't have to fight, it said, in 1,000 voices. Put it down. Forget the pain. We can give you a galaxy without war, without fear. But Rhea only whispered one sentence. A world without pain is a world without memory. And we are the children of both. She pressed the trigger. The memory burst exploded in white light, not heat, not sound, just pure remembrance. Every scream, every betrayal, every lost friend, every broken promise humanity had endured across centuries was broadcast into the heart of the parasite, and it screamed. Solari, watching from the ship above, saw the stars blink. For a moment, she felt every heartbeat on the planet below shift. The parasite's roots, wrapped around the minds of counselors, citizens, and entire species, began to unravel. Those infected fell to their knees, clutching their heads. But they didn't scream from pain, they cried from clarity. Names returned. Faces once forgotten lit up their minds, and the lie was shattered. In the council chamber above, the remaining leaders, now freed, stood in shock. Some wept openly. Others whispered apologies into the air. One counselor dropped to the floor and kissed it, repeating, "I remember my sister. I remember her name. Didn't know I'd forgotten." Ash, the AI, spoke through the fleet comes. "The central infection is disintegrating. Memory links across council systems are reawakening. Earth's pulse is echoing into the outer colonies." Solari stared through the viewport, her voice shaking. "You did it. You really did it." But Ria's reply came cold and tired. "No, they did it. They remembered." On 1,000 worlds, the story was the same. Children woke up and recognized their parents again. Elders spoke names they hadn't said in decades. Statues toppled. Propaganda screens went black. The soft whispering promises that once lulled the galaxy into numbness faded into silence. And in that silence, truth bloomed like wildfire. Earth was no longer hated. It was feared, yes, but respected, even honored, because Earth had done what no one else would. It tore down the throne that ruled through forgetting. Back aboard the ESS Deliverance, Solari stood on the observation deck beside Ria. Below them, the throne that had ruled the galaxy for generations was gone. Only ash and glowing ruins remained. Solari whispered, "So what now? You won." Ria didn't smile. "No, we just gave them back their story. What they do with it, that's up to them." Solari looked at her. "Will Earth stay and lead them?" Ria shook her head. "Earth doesn't lead, Earth remembers. That's enough." Ship turned, facing the stars once more. In the distance, beacons lit up from newly freed systems. Messages poured in, not calls for help, but simple words. "We remember." And to Earth, that was the only victory that mattered. Because peace built on silence is fragile, but peace born from truth, that endures. The galaxy had once exiled Earth to bury its pain. Now it looked to Earth to understand it. And as Earth's fleet disappeared into the void once more, one message echoed across every sky, every world, every heart. "We are the Deathworlders. We do not conquer. We remind you who you were before you forgot. Never forget again." Ask ChatGPT long after the parasite fell. After the throne turned to dust and the stars quieted, the galaxy was left with something it had not known in generations. Silence filled with thought. Not fear, not obedience, but real, living memory. The fire Earth lit had not faded. It had spread through words' faces. And the once buried names of ancestors now whispered again on thousands of worlds. The humans didn't stay. They never intended to rule. Their ships black, scorched, marked. With old war paint left council space quietly. One by one, the dreadnoughts returned to the shadows beyond the rim. They left behind no banners, no statues, only reminders. Monuments not of Earth's strength, but of the truth it forced the galaxy to face. Celery stood on the council balcony, her homeworld slowly recovering in the distance. She now wore a symbol on her chest not of Earth, not of her old species, but of the remnant Accord, a new coalition formed not from power but from memory. Her voice spoke across 1,000 relays. We were asleep.
Always.
Earth did not wake us with kindness. It woke us with pain, but it was pain we needed, because peace built on forgetting was not peace. It was death. Behind her, children listened. They would never again be taught to forget. They would grow up knowing the names of their people, their victories, and even their mistakes, especially the mistakes, far beyond known space. In a cold system untouched by the Council, Earth's fleet drifted silently. Inside the ESS Deliverance, Commander Ria stood before a glass panel etched with thousands of names, the names of those lost in Earth's exile. In wars no one else remembered. She traced a finger across one, in particular, Avery Juno. Spoke when others stayed silent. Zora entered quietly. "They're asking if we'll return." Ria didn't turn. "No, They say they want Earth to lead. Rhea gave a dry smile. We weren't made to lead. We're made to survive what others couldn't face. Ash spoke through the ship's mainframe, voice calm. Galactic peace is real now. But fragile, they still fear us. Rhea finally turned. Walking toward the central console, let them. Fear isn't always bad. Sometimes it keeps memory alive. She placed one final data shard into the archive core. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a command. It was a message. Not for the Council. Not for the infected, but for the next generation. If you ever forget again, if the stars go silent, if the names fade, if you let comfort become blindness, we will return. Out. Not as saviors. As reminders. Decades passed, and Earth's name became legend. Not the kind told in happy stories. The kind whispered in serious tones. The kind carved into stone. The kind remembered because forgetting it would cost too much. The remnant accord grew not by force, but by truth. Its members weren't warriors. They were rememberers, those who kept records, who told the full story, who refused to let their people sleepwalk into silence again and on the edge of the galaxy. An old human satellite spun alone in the dark, still broadcasting one message. Over and over, pain is not the enemy. Forgetting is. Somewhere, in some distant future, when the stars dim and peace grows soft again, someone will ask, who were the Deathworlders? And they'll hear the answer in every truth that still survives. They were not the destroyers. They were the fire that brought the galaxy back to life.